Hey guys, this is Daniel Sweeney, and I am. Hi guys, if you can hear me, this is Daniel Sweeney from danielmacsweeney.com and Financial Freedom Forever. Today I'm actually having a conversation with a guy called Rick Nielsen. You've probably seen him on the community. I'm just going to invite him here now. Sorry, no, just one second. It's a very bright, so I'm just going to turn down the brightness, and that's much better. I'm not that pale. I'm not a vampire. I do have a bit of color, and there's more light coming in from somewhere else, so I need to get that started as well. So just bear with me. And there we go. Now we have liftoff. So today I'm having Rick, and hi Rick. Rick's here. Rick, you should see an invite. Just click on that invite button, and we should be going live together then. So if you can see that invite button, just click that and we can go live. Bring on camera. Here we go, Rick.
Did it work?
Hello.
Oh my gosh, it worked. Oh,
It did work.
boy.
Hi, how are you doing, Rick?
How you doing, man?
Finally. I'm not too bad.
I'm doing
Yourself?
good. I'm doing good.
We finally get to talk.
It's only been what, 6 months, 8, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. No. Sorry, no, I'll just turn off something here that's working in the background. It's slowing down things. So, how are you anyway? Nice to have you live on Financial Freedom Forever.
It's fun to be here. I'm anxious to
Yeah.
see what that damage we can do this early in the morning.
Well, here in Ireland, it's only 9:17 a.m. in the morning, but it's a lot earlier where you are.
Yeah, it's 3:17 here, so yeah, it's a little early, but it doesn't matter. I can go back to sleep when I'm done.
Yeah. Thanks for getting up so early to talk to us here.
Hey, anytime for the group.
So, Rick, would you like? No. So, Rick, would you like to tell us your story? How did you become an entrepreneur? And how did you figure out what your niche was?
Well, yeah, I can do that. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version because it's quite an in-depth story. But I started kind of back when I was younger. I always had this desire to be able to do what I want when I wanted. And I grew up in a family of 4 kids, and mom was a big preacher of go out, get a job, or go out, go to college, get a job, retire from them, get the gold watch, and all that other stuff. And for some reason, that just never resonated.
Yeah.
And my brothers and sisters, they all went off to universities, and one's a pharmacist, one's a nurse, and the other one's a biochemist. But I just going to school like that just didn't do it for me. And when I was younger, I would take candy bars to school and gum, and I would sell them for a profit. Every kid tried that. And then when I was in Scouts, I went door to door selling what we ice cream social tickets. So I would walk up and down the neighborhood by myself and sell things, and I kind of liked the selling thing. And then one I got a comic book. I was a big comic book reader, and then on the back side of one of the comic books was this ad that you could go to auctions and buy military Jeeps and resell them, make bunches of money. And I tried to convince my dad that this was a huge opportunity, and I was like 10 years old. And he said I was full of shit.
My God.
So, I mean, whatever. But then I moved into I was going to become an architect because I love to draw. I love artists. I was an artist and stuff, and I thought I'd start, I want to be an architect, and more specifically a mechanical architect, drawing engines and stuff like that. But then all my buddies were over in the auto shop class, and they always said when you had a hot car, you could get girls and stuff. I thought, well, that's where I need to be. So I ended up over there and went to college as a mechanic. And the first time I discovered that sales and being your own boss came when I was I wasn't going to graduate from mechanic school at the college because I got a D in brakes, and my mom was going to. Yeah, oddly enough, yeah. And so I went to the teacher and I said, "Man, what can I do to get this D up to a C, so I passed because you don't know, Mom. He says, I tell you what, there's a 1963 British Sunbeam car in the shop. If you can sell it in the next 3 days, I'll bump that D up to a C and you can pass. Well, needless to say, my little brother owned that for years. And it dawned on me, he's like, man, I can get what I want if I'm. And so one thing led to the other. I started selling cars
Yeah.
at the dealership I was at and fell in love with selling. And then I went from there, and some guy came into the dealership one day and said, hey, I got an opportunity for you. And that's where I joined this MLM called Primerica Financial Services. And I was in that for about 9 years. And I had like 1,200 reps across the country. I had offices in 4 states. And and after that point, I kind of got out of that. I sold that business. And then I took a leave of absence from entrepreneurship for about a year and a half and moved to Kansas City and tried to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. And then I stumbled upon the internet, and I knew that much about it. But it looked like a great opportunity. And one thing just sort of led to.
And what year would that have been when you started on the internet?
That would have been about 1998. I actually got into leasing.
So
What's that?
So when it was just pretty much starting out,
Absolutely.
Around 96 for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, pretty much. See, my brother would come home. My brother was a pharmacist, and he was into computers, and he would always come home. And he came home one day and said, "You got to need to look at this thing called the internet." And and I thought he was just full of crap. I was like, "Well, there was no pictures back then. It was all text." I'm like, "Big deal." But I started selling. I started selling and leasing laptop computers and desktop computers. That's actually how I got into it. But I knew nothing about them. But I ended up selling. I had a leasing company that would lease it to businesses for a payment. And I made a huge commission on that. And I would take the computers to people's houses, set them up for them. And then one day a guy came to me and said, hey, he goes, you're into computers. He goes, could you build me a website? I said, I bet you I could figure that out. So one thing led to the other. Finally got out of the computer business because that pesky Dell guy was selling it for cheaper than I could. Can you believe that guy? That was rude. And then that websites were pretty profitable. So I started down that road, and I sold my first 5 websites. What I did was, since nobody knew who I was, and I had hired somebody who eventually became my wife, who eventually became my ex-wife, to work with me. I gave the websites away for free as long as they paid for their hosting and domain name up front. So we sold like 5 or 6. We sold like 5 or 6 websites in a really short period of time, and that's just sort of slowly crept up, and we started selling more. And then during that time, this was about 2000, I decided I needed to start my own .com because everybody was doing it. So I had part of that, and I started an auction site for motorsports. So it was like eBay for racers, and built that. We got funding. We got funding and different things like that, and then it went down in the toilet because that was when the .com bubble crashed. But we ended up moving from Emmitsburg, Iowa, which was a very heavily Irish town, by the way, and down to Kansas City because Kansas City was opening up a NASCAR track. And I thought, well, this would be perfect with this .com. Maybe I can salvage this. And my sister had lived there, and I'd lived there before. This was my second round in Kansas City. That didn't go so well, so we started building websites, and the projects just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where we were doing business with like Hallmark and Sprint and Black and Veatch, DuPont, and it exploded into this huge multi-million-dollar business. And then one day, my partner, who was my wife at the time's dad, so I had all this stuff going on, and we were doing, $100,000 a month, and then all of a sudden, her dad got cancer, and she had to leave and was gone for like 4 months, and that entire business imploded. And
so she was the backbone.
Yeah, well, she was kind of like one of the programmers, the billing person. I was more of the design and sales, and then we had some other people working for it, but she was kind of that person that took care of all the detail stuff. And it just proved to me at that time how fragile a service-related business can be. And I thought, maybe I'm not using maybe I'm not
Yeah.
using the internet correctly. And so I started doing research and started realizing that there was passive income. I discovered, affiliate marketing, and I'd already knew about affiliate marketing way back in like 1999, and I had made some money doing that, but I never implemented it into my daily business plan. So what I did was I slowly started winding down the service related business, or getting it down to something that was more manageable, so it wasn't such a big piece of my business, and started pursuing blogging, speaking, coaching, a lot of affiliate marketing. So I started implementing more of those. So it became more of a 50-50 balance of service related and then more passive income. And that's brought me up to today, where now I'm getting ready to do my podcast, and still do some design, and I do quite a bit of hosting, but I'm slowly, each year I slowly move out of that to more passive stuff, which kind of brings me to where I'm at today. Blogging, different things like that, a lot of coaching. And it's easier on my.
Yeah. Are you doing all the design?
Go ahead.
Are you doing all the design creation yourself for your own podcast?
I'm
website?
doing my own podcast stuff. I do all that, but for customer related sites, I got a couple of gentlemen that I outsource that are really, really good at Bootstrap and HTML, because I'm doing a lot more of that than I am WordPress at this particular point. I used to be a WordPress. I think I built like 800 WordPress sites when we first started. There was a lot, and I mean, I hosted all those. I've slowly over the years discovered how big of a pain in the ass WordPress can be in terms of hosting when you got 900 clients and you start seeing all of them get hacked. But I do all my stuff for my own for this particular WordPress project. I'm doing that myself. I still love to do that. It's
incredible.
It's fun.
So with the hosting, a question I have for you about the hosting. Did you actually host all these websites yourself, or were you the affiliate for?
I'm a reseller.
You actually.
So I have my own control. I have my
okay,
panel,
yes,
and I host some through. I'm a reseller through HostGator. I do some through Bluehost. I have some accounts over at WP Engine, and then I've got some servers over at Rackspace. So I administer most of the stuff myself. I had a client an old guy. He worked for the railroad at this college. He taught guys how to do railroad stuff, I guess. His name was John Hall, and he called me, found me some way, shape, or form. He called me and he said, "Here's what I need." And I went to go see him. He was like 70 years old. He had smoked like 2 packs of cigarettes a day, every day for his entire life. And he was just one of these old codgers. He goes, "I want a website. I want email, and I want the host." I said, "Well, you can probably get this." Or else he goes, "No, I want to get it all from you, son." He said, "Because I just want one throat to choke." So that scared the shit out of me. But my customers are more who, a lot of responsibility. Man, he got really good service. But most of my customers don't want to log into control panels. They don't want to do anything. I'm more of the full service, to where if they need something, they just call me. And I could charge a lot more for that. I mean, if you knew how much I was charging clients for a lot of these things, people would be floored. But when somebody tells me, prices, people are price sensitive, that's a bunch of crap, because what people want is they just want to be able to pick up the phone and call you. They don't care how you get it fit. And that's why I did so well in the web business. I didn't talk geek speak. I have this ability to take very technical and make it easy to understand. That's where I've prospered the most. And my customers don't really care. They just want to say, email's not working. Can you fix it, Rick? Yeah, I take care of it. But they pay for that. And it just depends on the platform.
Yes, and even them paying you for that, it leaves them the opportunity then to spend their time doing other things that could actually improve their businesses.
Exactly. And that's what I tell them. I said, you're either in the business of X, or you're in the business of being in the web design or web hosting business. I mean, are you going to get paid for that? I mean, I've even got vendors who I work with that refer a lot of business to me that sometimes feel that they just got to get their fingers wet inside of, because they just don't want to pay the money. I just had somebody a couple days ago. I seem to be everybody's WordPress 911 person. They'll blow up their WordPress site, and then they don't like the bill afterwards. But it's like, you don't trip over dollars to pick up nickels. Price your project so that you can bring a professional in to get it done. because you don't want to get messed up in that. That's just not how you make your money. And that's a hard thing to get through to people, you know, because WordPress can be easy to use at times and people think they can tackle it themselves. It's like, no, there's just certain things that you just need to have other people do.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to WordPress. You know, for example, if you change in the settings in WordPress, and if you change, for example, your location for your website, you could actually shut down your whole website. And you know, people like yourself or people that know how to work WordPress know how to go into the back end and
That's
how to fix that.
This lady.
So
that's exactly what she did. She thought, well, I'll just change it. I'll just change the URL, and it should start in the. No, that ain't how it works. And I said, all right, I'll fix it. No, you know, so I was like the cigar while I was fixing it. Kids, they should just leave shit alone.
And how is it like?
It's early, man. I'm trying.
Or did they find you, or was it word of mouth, or did you?
Exactly. Yeah, no, you kind of cut out a little bit there, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Did you hear the question,
go ahead
or will I say it again? It was. Oh yeah. I was just wondering, how did you find your customers? Did they find you, or did you actually market or advertise to get your customers?
This is
very
interesting. Company. This is how when I lived in the small town that I was in, of Emmitsburg, there was probably what was it? There was 100 people that were in the chamber, and so I did a direct mail piece to everybody in the chamber and invited them to a meeting, because I just came out of Primerica, so I was used to doing meetings. So I was going to do this big presentation about how the web was going to change the world, and I had all stuff there, and I had nobody show up. Not one person showed up to that meeting. But the next day, a guy in that town that owned a machine shop came in and said, "Hey, my website's messed up. I'm sorry I missed your meeting. Could you build my website?" Customer for 16 years. But when we moved to Emmitsburg and I did those first 5 websites, everything else just came because of referrals. And here,
referrals are very important.
And, what I tell people now is that when I moved to Kansas City, I didn't know anybody except one guy. I knew one guy and my sister. And how I got my business was I was in an incubator with a bunch of other .coms, and I would just kind of go around and shoot the shit with everybody. And I never really came out and pitched what I did. They just asked what I did. I said, well, I do web design, web hosting and stuff. And they just sort of came to me. And then about 6 months into it, we were getting a little bit of business. But what I started doing was I started going to lunch with people like IT companies who had a bunch of clients already. So I didn't personally go out and seek individual clients, because that took too long. I went and built the relationships with people who already had customers that needed those things. People that were in IT, places that fixed printers, people who did networking in terms of, you know, putting computers together, data centers. So I just went and visited with maybe 35 or 40 people, got to be good friends with them, and they just kept referring business. And I never, not once ever advertised, and I never once picked up the phone to cold call. And it just came, and that's.
My God, yeah, because I actually. When I actually worked with a web design and SEO company as well before, and what I was actually hired to do the cold calling for them, and I realized how hard it was to get customers that way. But he was getting most of his customers anyway from referrals from the jobs that he was already after doing, or else you know, when I was making phone calls, I was actually creating relationships as well with the people I was talking to, so they'd actually ring back and say, I was talking to this guy, and you know, I liked what he was talking about, and you know, they wanted to build a relationship then. But isn't it very important to build relationships with people, because a lot of entrepreneurs think we'll go online and we'll make money online without even talking to anybody, but relationships are extremely important to actually, you know, building a business.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to think that you just go online and never talk to another human again and make your money. And there is some business models that, you know, that are like if you build an app that you can sell inside the Apple, iTunes store, or Apple Store. But
Yeah.
to get to a particular point in your business, you always have to have some type of referral base that people can build on, so that they can keep referring you. And that's the key. I mean, man, if there was a way I didn't have to talk to people, of course I like to talk to people, so that's kind of half my problem. That's why I don't get shit done during the day. But once you build trust with someone, and that can take a little bit of time, but it's so easy for them to do referrals, and then those referrals, whether you tell them, like, I got this podcast that I'm getting ready. Well, I've got hundreds of people I've dealt with over the years, and there's no, come on, man, sign up for my podcast. I don't have to do anything. They're just going to go do it. And that, if you're in it for the long term, and your business is going to change over the years. I mean, if you're going to be in this business for as long as I have, it over the years. Built relationships, want to buy stuff from you if you've done. Yeah.
Sorry, Rick.
Hello.
You just got cut out there a second ago.
Who invented this thing?
You just got cut out there a second ago.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Mark Zuckerberg. I can hear you perfect now again.
Okay. It's just there's no easy route to making money on the internet. You have to do, and I think I did a video on this and I posted it in the group before. Starting with a service-related business, just get your business chops going. You can figure out what it is that you want to do online for passive income, and you just have to do it. But it makes you a better business person. Even if you're selling something online and you're not dealing with customers, you still are, because there's a person on the other end of that. And you don't want them to just buy one thing from him. You want them to keep coming back and getting more things from you. Then you just have to be very smart about that. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs fail. They really do. They think it's a one and done. That's just not how it works. Not in the long term anyway.
Yeah. I totally agree with you there.
It's
totally
very, very.
Agree with you. So
fire away.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to a new entrepreneur that's just starting?
Let's see, what advice. Try a good cigar. It helps with the thinking. I would say.
Is it cute when you're smoking?
Become a very, very good student. Sit down and when you're learning online and you follow in different groups and you listen to some of these mentors, one of the things I see a lot of early entrepreneurs get wrapped up in is they look at people like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and Berkshire, those guys, and they sometimes they take all that stuff in and they don't really sit down to think what they want out of what they're about to tackle. And Gary Vee's got a whole different level of playing, and he's got a whole different goals and things he wants to accomplish. Same with Grant Cardone, or same with Brendon Burchard or Frank Kern. You have to sit down and figure out, what do I really get out of this? And I know I've said this before, but this is so important, because maybe you're an entrepreneur that thinks, I'd like to make a consistent $5,000 a month, and I want to be able to do this, 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 and this. Well, if that's what your first, milestone wants to be, you're going to do a lot different things than somebody who wants to go out and try to make $100,000 a week, like a Grant Cardone. Spending more time soul searching what it is that you want is way more important than whatever business model that you pick. Because if what you want is this, but what you're working on is this, they're not congruent. And those things otherwise you're going to be frustrated as hell, wondering why you haven't gotten to here, or why what you're doing you don't like. Those two things have to be directly in line. Otherwise, you won't have the mental staying power to get far enough down the road to make that happen. And where I want to be has changed 50 times since I started this. And thinking of that, becoming a good student, and really having a clear picture of what you want and how you want it to, and not just where you want to get to, because I'm going to go through this in my podcast, which is really going to cause a lot of controversy, but I don't really truly believe in the word success, because to me, success is an external label that people put on somebody else. And success to me is like an end result. Like that person is successful. Well, what does that mean? It sounds like they've arrived somewhere. And to me, I don't think that's, I think that, I mean, people use that word, but they need to start using more the word vision or goal or vision or purpose, because it's like saying, I want to be a great dad. I can't ever reach that. I just have to strive for that every day. Same thing with your financial goals or your career goals. You can't just say, I want to be a successful entrepreneur. Well, I know a lot of successful entrepreneurs who are just shitheads. And they have a lot of, but they're the most unhappy people I've ever met.
Yeah.
You have to think, okay, and instead of goals, you use milestones. Like, okay, what's my first milestone? Well, I want to be able to become good at X. Okay, and in order to become good at X, it will help me move me to this level. Okay, then seek out an expert or mentors that are really good at X. And don't clog your brain with a lot of other extra stuff that you can't process. Search for that information you need to get you to that next level. And just take everything that you learn at face value, and don't think you have to be like everybody else. That's probably the biggest thing I would tell new entrepreneurs. Just try to avoid, be excited, be appreciative of the mentors online, but try to just take information you need to move you to the next level and then move on from there. Because there's too much information overload online right now to wait.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell someone.
Yeah, it really blow up your head.
It is like
there's so much of it.
I think when my brother first introduced me to a Barnes & Noble bookstore was back in the mid 1990s. He took me to this thing called a book. I'd been to a bookstore, but not like Barnes & Noble. And the business was one shelf.
Mm-hmm.
It was one shelf, and it was easy to pick a book because there just wasn't that damn many books to pick from. Yeah. Went in and you picked your book. You're like, oh, this is cool. Now you go in, there's like 10 shelves of it. It's like, I don't even want to look at these things. It's paralysis of analysis. And there's so many gurus and so much information that you could start looking at. You just can think, I need to learn a skill. Pick the best person to learn that skill from. And just, Tim Ferriss said it best. He seeks out information he needs on one subject that he's currently working on, and he seeks it out at the time he needs it. And I think that's incredible advice, because otherwise, I mean, God, you could be online all day long consuming just like we are online. But this is more important stuff to consume. Everybody should be consuming this.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I just lost you there again. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's what I usually recommend to people, especially getting started in entrepreneurship. There's my nickel.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right. All right. It's unfortunate I keep losing you every couple of seconds, but I think we'll probably finish this quick because you probably want to go back to bed anyway.
That's okay.
It's probably nearly 4 o'clock now.
I'm up now, but yeah, if there's anything else you want to ask me, fire away. I'll answer another question if you got something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask you one or two more. So, like, has entrepreneurship been everything you expected?
Well, let's see. I try to equate entrepreneurship to like dating and being in a relationship. You got some really good days, you got some really crappy days. Entrepreneurship can really build character, because if you have employees and you're having a hard time meeting payroll, that can really test you. In all other things, it's given me the freedom, and all that other stuff that you have to put up with is minuscule compared to the rewards that you get for controlling your time. And that's probably the biggest thing. And also, I mean, entrepreneurship will put you in situations that make you think in a different way than you would if you had a job. Because a lot of times you got to step and fetch and figure out, how am I going to be able to do this, or how am I going to deliver this? And because of you. you have to figure it out all by yourself. And I think that makes you a sharper entrepreneur, or just a sharper person in general. But the freedom that entrepreneurship will give you, regardless of how much money you make, is well worth it. Because I've talked about this before. The 13 or 14 years I sat in front of my computer as a web designer and running a web shop, I remember very little of my personal life because I didn't have any. And that's 13.
Oh yeah.
It was
just
just
all
it was just
entrepreneurship.
blow and go all the time, 16, 18 a day. And
Yeah.
as much as I tell people, you have to work hard, yes, in the beginning you have to work hard to get those things moving. But man, figure out that business, figure out how you can avoid, after a certain period of time, having to work that much. Because, like today, I'm going to go back to bed, but when I'm going to go have lunch with my kids at their school and then go to recess with play. And that is time that is more important than anything else. And that's the one thing I think entrepreneurs need to remember is, enjoy the ride, because the ride's bumpy and it's going to be fun. But I heard some guy say this once. It was a long time ago. He goes, if you have a job, you have job problems. If you're an entrepreneur, you have entrepreneur problems. I'd rather have the entrepreneur problems.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So, Rick, thanks so much for sharing all your knowledge with us on Financial Freedom Forever today. We'll probably have you on again, hopefully.
It's been great, and Danny, like I say all the time, you do a great job, and you run a great group, and keep up the good work. Everybody needs to pay close attention.
Thank you. So where can people find you?
Well, I have a new website that will be launched here soon, but I'm going to leave that a secret till it's ready to go. But I will post that group, or I'll send it to you if you want to post it to everybody. But it's blog.
Yes, I can actually post it underneath this video anyway.
It will be out, and my podcast will be out the first Monday in February, and that's where most of my focus is going to be, a daily podcast, and it's going to be just me rambling on about entrepreneurship. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting, because it's going to be a no holds barred show. So it'll be very interesting. So, but you guys have a great group, and I'm really proud of you, Daniel, for all the work that you do. So keep it up, my brother.
Thanks, Rick. Definitely. Thanks so much, Rick. It was great to have you on, and you're a star. I'm really looking forward to listening to your podcast. I'm actually going to be probably one of your biggest listeners.
All right, appreciate it, man. If there's anything you guys need, ask away.
No
Take
problem,
care, man. I'm going back to bed.
Thanks, Rick. Bye. So guys, that was Rick Nielsen. Thanks very much for watching and listening in. And next week we'll have another person to interview. I have a couple in mind and a couple in line already. So I will talk to you then. Have a good week and see you later.